Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating today? I'm celebrating my dear friend Alan Choi, who is here, and I asked him to pick a number 1 through 5 because I have 5 guests waiting in the wings, and they're all standing behind a door. I'm going to ask, I can see you all. Nod if you're all ready, because you never know who's going to come on first. I do know who I'm going to bring on first. Who or what are you celebrating today? For those of you who are here for the first time, my show is about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating each other. There are a few things that I want to acknowledge that I'm celebrating this week. Last night, I went to City Center and I saw Once Upon a Mattress. And I don't remember when I've been in such a packed theater where everyone in unison were laughing and applauding, and just it was such joy in that theater. It was such a fun evening. Also, earlier this week, I went to the drama bookshop and saw Louis Stadlin, who has a new book out called Save Me a Seat, about life on the road. And I'm sure that everyone on this panel today has spent time on the road, and we know what that ordeal is like. Louis went on the road for the first time when he was 19 in the first national tour of Fiddler on the Roof. And he just did his latest tour just before the pandemic, and that was Hello Dolly with Betty Buckley. And he's in his early 80s, and he's ready to go on the road again. Well, I'm going to bring on our first guest, and I'm going to find out if he has spent a lot of time on the road, and and what it is that he's celebrating today. And that is our dear friend Steve Hauck. Steve, you are muted, so unmute yourself. And there you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm celebrating a new year still, 2024, and an opportunity that I have that we're going to talk about, I think, a little bit, to branch out into directing and writing. I've been an actor in the theater and on TV and film for all these years, and been a backseat director, as many of us have. And a backseat writer.
But what I really want to do is direct.
What I really want to do is direct. And if they'd only asked me, I could tell them exactly how to make this work, but they didn't ask me. So this time I'll be the one that people are asking, or people are backseat directing, because I'll be in the director's chair. So I'm excited about that. Very excited.
We'll be talking about that in a moment with our guest who's been on the show before. But, it's very interesting because every single person on this panel today, it started out as an actor and then branched out into other areas.
Interesting.
But this is a new endeavor for you. What enticed you to say yes?
Well, I've wanted to direct. I have done some smaller directing projects. And my friend Jeffrey Voss, who's going to be coming on, wrote a play several years ago called Tomorrow We Love. It was given a production at the Theater for the New City. But the pandemic came down like a guillotine right in the middle of the run. And so that was, put on the shelf. And then last year he asked me, he said, I'd like to do that again. Would you consider directing it? And I was honored, flattered, but terrified. And we started working on the script together. And I feel like we have collaborated really, really well, and taken his story and his characters and kind of souped them up a little bit. So it's just been an experience. And every year for the past 20 years, I've said, this year I'm going to write something that somebody else, performs, or somebody else even reads. So this is a long deferred dream of mine, and it's coming true. And so
what is your history with Jeffrey prior to him asking you to be a part of this?
Jeffrey and I met in 1997 doing a production of Torch Song Trilogy.
Wow.
Yeah. Off-Broadway. It was at the Grove Street Playhouse. which is,
Oh my God.
you remember the Grove Street
I
Playhouse?
I made my debut in New York. My I call it my off Broadway debut
Yes.
in Cinderella with a children's theater company.
Marilyn Majeski's, yes, right. She had that children's theater there for
Is
all.
Marilyn still around? Are you in touch with Marilyn?
Well, no, I certainly am not. And we rented the theater. Jeffrey was the star of the show. He was Arnold Beckhoff, the oh, Harvey Firestein role, and
Right.
I was the bisexual boyfriend. Marilyn was around, but she was not really involved in our production that much. But it was a beautiful little space. We had a great time and became fast friends, and have been ever since. We've done, you know what we've done, Richard? We've done our own projects together. Do you know a play called Staircase?
I don't think so.
That was like one of the first plays on Broadway that dealt explicitly with gay characters. It was a two-man show. Came over from England, although it was Eli Wallach and Jeffrey will know, Mila O'Shea. And we worked on that, we workshopped it, and we did it in the Ellington Room at Manhattan Plaza, which you may be familiar with.
I am, absolutely.
Yes, and we did another reading of Torch Song Trilogy with some different cast people. I directed him as Mr. Charles, currently of Palm Beach, that wonderful Paul Rudnick play.
Yes. Well, I want to ask you, I mean, because I ended up over the years doing a lot of shows at the Grove Street Playhouse. And of course, I did a lot of shows with John Glines. Did you work with John at all at the Grove Street Playhouse?
I never knew John Glines, and I was very familiar with the Glines and the fact that that was the gay theater of its time, and that's where Torch Song was developed and where Harvey,
that's right.
yes, put it together. And I have a very good friend, Jacqueline Sidney, who worked for the Glines and knows John and his husband, who is, I think, Ty or...
Yes, Ty,
and has spent time with them. So I was aware of John Glines, but I never met him. I never have. I'm sorry to say, because I know he's a legend. Did you work?
Well, you and I have to talk outside of this show because we could go on forever about how our paths have crisscrossed probably over the years. We probably have run into each other so many times and didn't even know it, but here we are today. Steve, one of the things that I do on my Friday show is I lay out 5 mystery cards. And I ask a mystery question just for a little fun. And then we're going to bring on Jeffrey and we're going to talk about the collaborative process with the two of you.
Great.
So pull a number 1 through 5 and we'll see what your question of the day is.
Okay. And I just say the number, I'll say 3.
And your card is, would you rather be the funniest or smartest person in the room?
Wow. What a good question. I think the funniest would be more fun, right?
I think so too.
Yeah, because also often the smartest person is the one who's way ahead of the game and who is sitting there thinking, oh, I'm bored because I know everything already that everybody's talking about, So I would prefer to be the funniest. I think that would just be a lot.
Now, do you remember the show Tattletales?
I don't. No.
Well, it was a game show, and these couples would come on, and they would ask one of the spouses a question about their partner, and to see if you would get it right. So, would you say that Jeffrey is the funniest or the smartest person in the room?
You know what? He does make a room laugh. He makes people laugh. So he's the funniest. I mean, he's smart too, but funny is his sort of forte.
Well, here he is.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And he's got a Richard Skipper Celebrates mug, so I'm happy about that.
Check that out. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
So, Jeffrey, I mean, this whole new, it's a new year. It's a new you. because is this the first play that you've written that is now actually going into production?
Actually, no. About almost 20 years ago now in January, as you recall, I've been on your show promoting Aloha Oi, the cabaret. I'd written a one-man show. I thought it was going to be the next Eric Bogosian or Sandra Bernhard or Whoopi Goldberg. And I wrote this sort of one-man, 12-character piece that I performed. And hopefully this year this doesn't happen. But misfortune seems to follow me. I did the show at the
Get rid of that thought.
I know, it's gone. But Abingdon Theater at the time, there was the week that I did the performance. Not only did I get sick, but there was a blizzard. So then to get COVID when I did Tomorrow We Live, was like, oh my God, what's going on here? But since then I successfully did Aloha Oi, the cabaret. So to answer your question, yes, I've written, I've produced before. So this is, I think, the third. I don't know if I would consider the cabaret shows. I mean, that is sort of self-producing, but something of this level. This is actually the second time I've done it to this extent. So it's really exciting.
You mentioned that there are other, you're playing a lot of characters. Is it just you on stage, or are there other actors on stage with you?
Well, Aloha Oi 20 years ago was just me, but Tomorrow We Love is a 6-character piece. And to give it just a little background, it's sort of my take on a 1950s romance melodrama, Technicolor widescreen, an imitation of life, really all that heaven allows, the Douglas Sirk world, where we have she's now the richest woman in town, played by moi. And we've made some changes from the initial, a lot of changes, but yet it's still, as Stephen said earlier, it's still my story and my characters. And what's fun about it is, of the 6 people, 2 of the women characters are played by men, myself and my good friend Jimmy Moon, who also costumed the show. And my daughter, who is played by a female identifying actress, her boyfriend, who used to be a football player, but now he's a surfer stoner because the play is set in Northern California. That character is played by a female identifying actress as a man. So there's like 3 characters in drag and 3, and we actually are now dealing with, I think more so than in the original piece, I think Steve would agree, we are kind of throwing in the, look, we are playing with gender here. There's a couple of lines that Steve's written that are very clever in that regard. I don't want to give it away, but it's really been, the collaborative process has been beyond my expectations. Really has.
That's great. Steve, you can leave the room for a moment. Jeffrey, I'm going to ask, why Steve?
Why not?
Good.
I'll tell you why, Steve. I'll tell you the reason. And he knows this. He gets so tired of me whenever I tell it to people. But it's the truth. When we did Torch Song, we didn't know each other. And I had been with the project 6 months, and he was our third Ed. We had 2 other Eds, who's really opposite Arnold. This is a 3.5-hour Gotterdammerung of a play. It's crazy, hard, and emotional. And Stephen came in, and we auditioned, and we just kind of looked at each other like, And so we did the play, and we had the best time. And I always tell people, he made it easy for me to fall in and out of love with him every single night. And I do think, I don't mean to blow smoke, but he is probably one of the finest actors I've ever known. So, to have that kind of support when he said yes, that he was interested, I was just, oh my God, okay, now what? And that's when everything started. And we really have been working on it probably since last summer. And we're still working on it.
A shameless plug here. I have a new show that I'm opening as well. And I bring this up because my director, James Beeman, my musical director, Dan Pardo, we are having an incredible time in the collaborative process. Liza Minnelli once said that as much as she loved being in front of an audience, it's what happens in the rehearsal studio that where the real magic takes place. Before we bring on our next guest, I'd like each of you to say what the collaborative process means to each of you. And I'll start with you, Steve.
The collaborative process. Well, I could not have started this project with writing on it without the foundation that Jeffrey created, that from the very beginning excited my imagination, interested me in a very personal way. And when I said I would direct, we were not looking to co-write the new script, and that sort of evolved. And I'm so proud of Jeffrey for, being able to sort of let go a little bit of what he did and place some of it in my hands. And like I say, everything that we have done together and that I have done, we have built on the foundation that he established with these characters and this story, the dramatic potential in that story. And we do great. I go in and I do some writing. He goes in and looks at it and says, well, you know what? I thought we were going to do something different here. And I go, oh, you know what? You're right. That's better. It's wonderful to have that back and forth.
And Jeffrey, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll second that. What's really fun about working with Steve is he gets me and he understands me, and he's really narrowing the focus. And we're now going to be 90 minutes, no intermission. The original play was 2 hours with an intermission, and he's highlighting what I do best. And I think his whole point with doing what he's doing with the piece is, let's take my character and make it her journey. And that's really fallen into place. And it's, as he said, it's what I've written. It's my story and my characters, but the dialogue's changing. The situations are almost the same, but we jive a little bit. And the fun part is, and Steve will text me, oh, I took a look at this scene. Why don't you take a look at it? And I'll be like, oh no, because at first it was hard. It was very hard for me to let go of, oh my God, we don't have that joke or that thing. How come? Well, now, guess what? I read it. It's because it's better because Steve put his hand in it. So he's got a real sense of the period. We're having so much fun pulling. It's set in 1960. We're having so much fun pulling period references. I mean, the other day he wrote something about Jack Parr. It was like, oh yeah, Jack Parr, of course. So little things like that have been really fun for us to explore, and I'm loving it. I'm really, really having a blast.
That's great. We're going to bring on our next guest, but before we do,
I put my hand in here. And we have to,
yes, which is sung in my show. So, yes. So Jeffrey, pull the number 1 through 4 for the question. First of all,
2.
And your question is, what's the best job that you've ever had in this business, today's fun at work day, besides the current project that you're working on?
Oh, besides the current one, oh God, there've been so many, but Torch Song was a dream production. We just all got along. It was so fun for me to play Arnold. That was I've had a few. I'm grateful to say I've had a few. I wanted Steve's question because that was a great question.
Well, you can answer that one as well.
Funny. Oh, funny. That's it. Done.
Well, let's see if our next guest is the funniest or the smartest person in the room. So pull a number 1 through 3, and we'll bring out our next guest.
1.
And that is Mary Foster Conklin. We've known each other a long time. This is the first time she is on the show. She is one of the greatest, and I do mean that, Mary, jazz singers around. She also has one of the most soothing voices on radio. Last week was National DJ Day. You should always be celebrated. And she celebrates women with a nod to some men. I love what you do on your show, Mary. But welcome to the show. And
Thank
how are
you.
you?
I'm very good. Actually, it's women writers, not just women. Yes. So women composers, women lyricists, so that I can play men, women, whatever gender you identify with, instrumentalists, vocalists, and the tie-in is a woman was behind it, what I call women-driven jazz. But I do play some Broadway, some cabaret, but it is mostly a jazz show.
When where did the inspiration for this show come from?
I had done, as a cabaret show, corporate kind of thing, I had put together an evening called A Broad Spectrum, which was women writers, and I had done it, at private events, and I had done it at schools. And what I had done radio in college, but I'm very good friends with David Kenny of WBAI, and there was a very interesting thing that happened in 2015. In March, there's a date called International Working Women's Day, and WBAI is a very political radio station. And what happened was it fell on a Sunday, and David was locked out of his show because they wanted no women on the air or in the building on International Working Women's Day. So David got mad because he didn't want to lose his slot, and so he volunteered me. He goes, well, I have a DJ who can fill in for me. And
good for you, David.
Just volunteered me, and I had 3 days to come up with 2 hours of music. And so I just proposed a broad spectrum, and I gathered up a bundle of CDs of my friends and people I admired and went off and did the show.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it went so well, I subbed for him several times, and it kind of grew from there. And then I got a chance to interview at WFDU, which is the radio station of Fairleigh Dickinson in Teaneck, New Jersey. And when they asked what kind of show I wanted to do, I just said, how about a broad spectrum?
That's wonderful. I have several friends that are, do they still say DJs?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I have several friends that are DJs on Sirius XM radio, and they do the tie-ins with the songs, but they are not hands-on in terms of the selections for their shows. You're very hands-on with every aspect of your show.
It is the delight of college radio, is that you have total autonomy. It is, it's where I started, which was, some of the most passionate radio people I have ever known started in college. And certainly the longest running DJs at WFDU were students. There's some pretty, one of my favorite alums from Fairleigh Dickinson was the late and great Paul Lucas.
Wow.
Yeah.
I miss him.
I miss him terribly.
Yeah, he was a great, great guy. I mentioned earlier with Steve that one thing that all of our panelists have in common today is we all started out on the path as actors. You also started out as an actress. And then you went mostly in the direction of music. Do you ever, at this point, still desire to act? Do you get the opportunity to act? And I know with all the hats that you wear, do those opportunities come your way?
There was a deliberate shift at what I would call my Saturn return. I had been an actress. I had been a member of a nonprofit theater company in my 20s, and had started doing cabaret in the clubs, and sort of reached an impasse where I had to make a choice. I was burning out and having some health issues, but it was just one of those things, like suddenly the world was like, you need to specify and simplify, I guess the word was. And I made the discovery that I was a much happier singer than actor. And I have dipped my toes back into acting, but what it feels like is an affair with a married man. It would be fun for a while, but sooner or later there'll be a big disappointment. Isn't that cynical?
Well,
but this is just my point of view.
You have truly not given up acting, because with every song that you sing, you are acting, and you do such a great job. I'm a huge fan of your work. So I'm so thrilled that you're here today. And you're a fellow Carolinian, so I love that about
you.
Well,
by marriage, not I'm a Jersey girl by birth.
There are some good things that come out of South Carolina, North Carolina. Yes. God help them all, and God help all of us. But before we bring on our next guest, I'm going to begin by asking you, um, what is the best job that you feel that you've had in your career with all of the many hats that you wear?
Oh, it was a big thrill for the years that I sang at the Royal Room, which was one of the last of the great cabaret rooms. And how it all unfolded was serendipitous. Roger Everingham, who booked
Yes.
that show, would not book an artist he had not seen live. And of course, he stumbled in to the most out left of center cabaret show I have ever done. And I was horrified to see him because it was the Peggy Lee Mirrors show.
Oh, okay.
Very theatrical, very dark. Not and I when I met him, I just went, "This is the wrong show." And I ended up mailing him my CD, and we had this long conversation. And he was like, "You've got to build a standard show because that show is beautiful, but it's not going to work in my hotel."
Mm-hmm.
But somehow it worked. I was able to convince him and get hired a couple years running. And that was very grand to be in Palm Beach and, go walking on Worth Avenue. And, it was those kind of high-end jobs. Those cabaret rooms don't exist anymore.
I know. Trust me, I know.
Like the Plush Room.
Oh,
Like,
Plush Room is my favorite room to play. I love the Plush Room. And next question: do you want to be the funniest or the smartest person in the world?
Oh, tough call. Tough call. For women, I always like the restoration drama line. Has she beauty? Has she money? Has she wit?
I love it.
And as the older you get, the beauty falls away. Money is very useful, but your wit, baby, that's what carries you. And actually, wit is a combination of smart and funny.
That's true. That's
Very
true.
true.
So there are 3 mystery cards laid out. So pull a number 1 through 3.
2 was already chosen, I
Well,
think.
there are 3 cards, so you can pull 1, 2, or 3. If you want to go with 2, we can go with 2.
Okay. We'll go with 3.
Okay, and your card is: would you rather win a Grammy or an Oscar? I think I know the answer.
Well, now being the gentle ankle biter in the Grammy world, because since I am a voting member, I'm constantly going, where are the women at? I'm not seeing any women in the jazz instrumental category. I'm not seeing any women leaders in the large ensemble category. So, I would have to say, but there've been inroads, but it's a work in progress. But maybe Grammy. Although it was a very exciting year for the Grammys in the traditional pop category, as we know.
Absolutely. So you're going to bring on our next guest. So pull a number 1 or 2, and we'll see who our next guest is. And hopefully they're both ready.
2.
And we are meeting for the first time also today. Eli Santana, you are muted, so unmute yourself. There you are.
All right, I got it. Yeah, I tried to do the quick keys thing and it didn't work. I was trying to be too fancy instead of just clicking on it.
So you too, have this incredible acting background. And now, I mean, the world of music and acting are crisscrossing. Which of those 2 hats do you enjoy wearing the most?
Oh man, I feel like I should say the music side because I think I've dedicated so much of my life to it. But man, I think maybe like it depends on like which day of my schizophrenia you ask. But as of today, I think I'm enjoying the acting lane right now. Maybe just because just got off tour and playing a bunch of shows and recording, so maybe I'm just like burnt out. But
so
and then just being in classes and still trying to learn, and so I think I'm just in that vein right now.
I mentioned earlier that I went to see Louis Stadlin the other night. Steve, do you know Louis Stadlin?
I have not met him, but I certainly know who he
Great,
is.
great actor, and his entire life has been in the theater.
Mhm.
And this new book, which I highly recommend, is called "Save Me a Seat," and he talks about the whole thing about being on the road. Do you like being on the road, Eli?
I do, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's some of it can be really, really draining, but I do genuinely like it. I think you have to be that type of crazy to actually like it, and that's kind of the only way it works. Because I've played with amazing musicians, and then you get them out on the road, and they don't last more than a week, and they want to go home, and it's just you got to be kind of a weirdo, and I think I am like that. So, but yeah, I do enjoy it, and I maybe it's like the perfectionist, but each new show I get to fix the mistakes that I made the night before. So it's
Now, from the work that you you do a lot of one night stands, if you'll pardon the expression, or do you do,
Mhm.
or do
it's
you
a different show.
do, yes, or do you do longer runs in each town?
It's 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 the one night stand. Yeah, we all the time like, we play in these amazing cities, and people are like, "Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see that?" And I was like, "I saw the back alley of this like scuzzy club, and I know where there's a coffee shop and maybe a bar, but yeah, it is that is the hard part because there's so much to see. You want to take in the city, and it's pretty much show up, sound check, and a lot of times leave in the morning, sometimes that night."
That's one of the things that Lewis was talking about the other night. He says the first thing he does is he finds out where the all-night diner is.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to eat before a performance. At least I don't. And then trying to find something in these towns
Mm.
is a crapshoot sometimes. But my favorite two words in the entire world is room service.
Ha.
I love being on the road and just going back to my room after a show and ordering room service and watching a movie. That to me is heaven.
That's career goals for me to get where I have my own room and I feel comfortable ordering room service. Yeah, that's the goal.
So
It doesn't always work like that, unfortunately.
No.
I did a gig and they put us up at a Motel 6 and I went to the desk looking for an extra pillow and they sent me to the Kmart down the street.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
Mhm.
So Eli, what are you currently working on? What's next for you?
So I'm really excited on the acting side of it. I'm in a play called Ramona, and this will be my 6th year doing it, and it's out in Hemet, California. And this is our 101st year of the Ramona pageant. And it's been in the same exact place. It is an outdoor drama, and it is America's longest running outdoor drama and California's official outdoor play.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm excited to get into this season post the 100th year. So that's starting. We got a new Ramona, so I got a new leading lady that we're gonna shoot do a photo shoot for all the promo stuff tomorrow, actually. So yeah, no big night of drinking for me tonight.
Oh, well, good for you. Well, we're going to do a little round robin on the questions that have been posed already. First question: Grammy or Oscar?
I'm gonna go Oscar.
Okay.
Because that gives you the opportunities to work on bigger projects. And then if I don't have a Grammy, I still got my metal hardcore punk cred on the streets. I'm still cool enough to go back there. So it's a little best of both worlds.
And do you consider yourself the funniest or the smart? Oh, would you rather be the funniest or the smartest person in the room?
I've been trying to be the funniest person in the room my whole life, and that explains where I ended up career-wise. But Yeah, I guess the funniest. I really like what Mary said about the wit, but yeah, I think yeah, it's probably the funniest. I want to say it's the smartest.
And what
I
do you
want to be
consider?
smart, Richard.
Absolutely. Well, you're all of those things. So, what do you consider the best job that you've ever had in this business?
Wow, that's it's probably my current job. Being the singer for Ignite. I've been a fan of the band for decades, and so I got to sing for them and front the band, and I'm in the band. So and we've done some amazing stuff, put out a record that I'm really proud of, and we just got back from South America, my first time there, and we had some incredible shows, probably like top 5 of my career. So I'm still on the high of that.
Congratulations. There are 2 cards left. So 1 or 2, and then we're going to bring our next guest who's waited so patiently this whole show. So 1 or 2.
They got to be number 1.
Okay. And your question is, what thing are you most, growing up, what was the one thing that you were most scared to tell your parents?
Probably that I had a report card that was all D's and F's, and I hid it. And then when we moved out of that house, my mom found the report card, and it was this horrific report card. And
You know, how long afterward did she find the card?
years, yeah. I put it up on the fridge with pride. And so people were like, "Oh, it's a report card," and then just see these horrendous. They shouldn't have passed me on to high school. Like, honestly, the whole no kid gets left behind thing, I don't think was the best for me. I probably should have stayed another year, but a college graduate, I got through.
Good for you. Well, this our next guest is not going to be left behind. She's been waiting so patiently. Barbara, thank you so much.
Hi. I'm sitting here in my dusky Friday night lighting. As I told Richard earlier, I dropped my ring light and it came apart.
But you're here, and that's all that matters. And you've got your own
I'm
inner
here.
light, Barbara.
I'm here.
So, Barbara, we mentioned earlier, it came up in conversation, Theater for the New City.
Yes.
You've been with the theater how many years?
1994 was my first production there.
And you also started out as an actress,
Yes.
but you have become a prolific teacher, a producer, a director, a playwright. Out of all the hats that you wear, which one do you feel that you wear the most comfortably?
Wow. Well, I try not to do all of them at the same time. I would have to say my first love was always acting. Always. I started when I was a kid, growing up near Philadelphia. So even when I started adding directing and and coaching and so on, I just I never lost that. And even though I don't focus on it these days, I don't make rounds anymore like I did when I hit New York. I try, and I'm lucky to have a venue in New York that I could at least perform in something once or twice a year. And I started writing plays because I wanted to write a part for myself. And by the third play, I was finishing the draft and I realized there wasn't a role for me. So I said, well, I guess I'm a playwright.
Well, this is a fairly new avenue for both Steve and Jeffrey. And with all due respect, Steve and Jeffrey, I hope you don't mind me asking this question. What advice would you give to both of them? With your history and getting your first show up and produced.
Well, first, as far as the plays, when I coach playwrights, I don't tamper with what they're writing about. I just try to make it structurally more dramatic, more logical, that kind of thing. But I would just say beware of people giving you advice, because I've worked with playwrights. Every time somebody said something, they rewrote. And trust yourself. You're the only one who knows the story you want to tell.
So, in
Thank
your
you.
situation, was there ever a moment where someone gave you great advice that catapulted you to another level? And then the flip side of that, a moment where someone gave you bad advice that you listened to that you really regret listening to?
Wow. I'll take the first one, and maybe we'll forget about the second one. When I started writing plays, I was writing these contemporary comedies. And one of my younger sister, I have two sisters, I'm in the middle, is a human rights activist globally who's put her life on the line. And I'm just so enamored, and I have such respect, and I'm so proud of what she's done with her life. And I said to her, I think I'd written 2 plays, and I said, I wish I could do what you do. I hear about some terrible social injustice and I get angry and upset. You hear about it, you get angry and upset, and you get 3 more political prisoners released. And her response was, why should you do what I do? Why don't you do what you do best? And that changed the whole trajectory of the plays that I write. And from that time on, my plays, whether they're comedies or dramas or a mix, are all about social injustice, about retrieving from history people who've been marginalized, or either their lives have been distorted or omitted in popular culture, particularly LGBT people and African American. Anybody who's been given kind of who's become an afterthought in popular culture, and I try to put them on stage. So that was the best. I think the best advice that I got, and the worst advice. I don't know if it was a result of advice, but I met the producer, Frank Perry, the film producer, when I was a kid. I auditioned for a film of his that was shooting in Philadelphia, and it was down to 2 of us. And I didn't get it. But I sort of stayed in touch, and he was doing a film I saw in New York. Well, I had moved to New York, and I contacted him, and I got a meeting with him, and I got a great big hug, and he said to me, I don't have a role for you in this film, but I know how it is for actors at the beginning of their careers, especially in New York, and we're working this summer. Would you like to be my assistant on the film? Guess what I said?
No.
I'm an actress. I don't do.
Oh!
And then I said, well, can I think about it? And I'll let you know tomorrow. And after that, I could not reach him. It was
Wow.
totally
Those
inaccessible.
opportunities don't come again.
I
So,
know.
everyone,
So that was taking my own bad advice.
well, going over the questions that I've asked the other panelists today, what was the one thing that you, I'm going to go in Eli's direction, the one thing that you hid from your parents?
Wow. Not my sexual identity. They didn't have a problem with that. But I always, for some reason, I don't even remember a time that I didn't want to work in the theater. That's how far back it goes in my memory. And, as I said, I grew up over the bridge from Philadelphia. I'm also a Jersey girl. And at that time, when I was a kid, they had Broadway tours, tryouts, and everything. And the balcony seats were so cheap. And I looked at the Sunday arts section of the Philadelphia paper of the upcoming season, and I figured out how many plays, the total ticket price that I would need to see all of them from the top balcony. And I said to my parents, I need to talk to you. And I said, I think I was 8 years old, maybe, and I said, I figured out if you don't give me any birthday presents or Hanukkah presents or anything, and you gave me the money instead so I could buy tickets to all of these plays. And they laughed. And I was mortified. They were horrified. And it never happened. I mean, I ended up, I would play hooky. And I would tell my mother, if you want to, get me in trouble and yourself in trouble, then that's your call. But otherwise, write a note for me, because I could go to the Wednesday matinees that were the cheapest.
At 8 years old. I love that.
Well, no, by that time I was a little bit older than that. I was maybe 12 when I was allowed to take the bus by myself into Philly. And I used to hang out at the theaters, not as a fan, but I decided, and there was a small group of us, of theater kids, that we wanted to meet the people we were going to work with when we grew up.
Wow.
And we didn't want autographs. That was for fans. And I was very successful. I got to meet, well, first of all, I became an expert at crashing the stage door and past the doorman. And I got to meet so many people that were so lovely. And my claim to fame was Laurence Olivier when I was 14.
Wow.
And I think it was the last thing he did, and he was already getting sick. And I pushed my way and I ran, and the doorman's chasing me, and I saw a door with a star on it, and I opened the door, closed it behind me, and he was sitting there in his shorts, taking off his makeup. And I was 14, and I was like, oh. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Did you see the matinee?" Do you want to talk about? Well, why don't you have a seat? And do you mind if I continue dressing? And I literally remember nothing of our conversation until I saw him with his coat on, standing up, and he said, "Well, I'm leaving now. Are you leaving?" "Yeah." "Well, shall we walk out together?" I said, "Okay." And he put his arm around me, around my shoulder, and we walked out. And we walked out, and there was like a huge mob of people waiting for him. But I saw my cohorts with their mouths open, and I turned to him and with all the bravado, and said, "Well, it's really nice talking to you."
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. Well, there's one
Yeah.
question left, and then I'm going to ask each of you a question on creativity to end the show. But you're all going to get a chance to have your final word today. And this is the last question that was left, and it's a doozy. Would you rather experience the beginning of planet Earth or the end of planet Earth?
Wow.
Ooh.
Look at that light.
And the light comes on, and then there was light.
I could go first, I guess. I would guess the end. The beginning, I don't know if I would get very far in it with all those big monstrous Tyrannosaurus and Stegosaurus and all those. The end, hopefully, if it happens, it'll be long past my lifetime. But if not, I would hope that I feel good about the life that I led.
Well, so far you're doing just fine. So I read a lot of books on the creative process, and so I put together each week questions that pop up in terms of what I think. And I'm going to start with you, Mary. And the question that I want to ask you is, how have you embraced social media in terms of your marketing and getting the word out about what you do?
It's been a very valuable tool, and in ways that I didn't anticipate. I was actually at a radio conference, and the DJs there were touting the importance of Instagram. And I was like, what the hell? What Instagram is visual. Why would a radio person? But I have found Instagram incredibly useful because, to be blunt, it's like Facebook is more for older viewers. Instagram is much more young oriented, and like Twitter is for writers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually been an incredible way to, and also there are DJs that I revere. I just met Giles Peterson of the BBC, who is really a god. And I notice he's a very active participant on Instagram, and he posts his playlists on Instagram with the little handles and stuff. I was like, well, I could do that. And, you know, Instagram has actually been a very good way to reach out to, especially the young artists that I play on my show.
That's great. Barbara, what is
Yes.
the most valuable lesson that you've received by a mentor in your career? And who would that be?
Wow. There were so many. I would have to say the late Barbara Barondess. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She had 4 successful careers in her lifetime, and started out in poverty, living above the candy store that her parents had in Brooklyn. And she ended up in the 20s on Broadway, then in films. She was in Queen Christina with Greta Garbo. She gave up films and became an interior designer, came back to New York and started a theater foundation. And when I met her, she was already over 90. And she was such an example. When I had a reading of my play in one of my plays at Theater for the New City, and there was a snowstorm, and I was only there because it was my play, she showed up.
Wow, God
So
bless
she
her.
was such an example. And yeah, I mean, she was so supportive of my work, and I loved her very much. And you know, she did so much to support theater, and you know, I miss her. But
Beautiful.
yeah.
Steve, I'm going to come to you next. I read recently that all of us present to the world what is our director's cut of who we are. What is your director's cut?
Oh, oh my gosh. Well, I say that I aspire to every person that I come into contact with goes away from our interaction feeling better about themselves and life. Now that's, kind of a general, could be Pollyanna type thing, but I really try to make my director's cut, at least when I'm out performing, when I'm on, as it were, out in the world, I really try to radiate positivity and make somebody's day better if I can. I don't always succeed, and I'm not always in the mood to do it, but it's kind of forefront of my mind that I really want. I wonder later, I wonder if that little stupid little joke I told the cashier at the store really made any difference at all in whether they were, how their day went. Probably, maybe not. I don't know. But better than barking at them, right? Or even just being glum or something. So my director's cut would include trying to communicate some acknowledgement or joy to people that even ones I have momentary contact with.
That's a great goal to have every day.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, what is the one task that you've done this week, as we're wrapping up this week, to help elevate your career?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, before I forget, because I realize we haven't really I just want to remind everyone, tomorrow we love, June 13th through the 23rd. And Richard, you will definitely be hearing about it. And hopefully maybe we can come back on later. This is the one thing I did. I signed the contract with the theater yesterday. And I gave them money Thank you, because it's huge. I had to do a cashier's check, and when you read, it's great. Theater for the New City. When I did it, there was, as I'm sure Barbara knows, God bless Crystal Field. It's a 2-page contract. You do this, you do this, you can't do this, you do this. This was a 6-page contract or 8-page something, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts. And as a producer, my producer hat on, I have to really think, and it keeps me up at night. It's already keeping me up at night. Oh my God, we have to do this and this and this. But do you know how exciting it was? And Steve was there last night when we went to the theater and we handed it over to Kirk at the Chain Theater. And I was like, oh my God, I looked at him and we both went, oh my God, this is it. We're doing it. We're really doing it. And so that was really fun and exciting. June 13th to the 23rd. Did I say that already?
Make sure that I get that information so that
I will, Richard. You're such.
I know you will. And I love it.
God bless you, Richard. Skipper has been such a fan of mine for a couple of years now, Richard. I'm so blessed and honored to know you, and I appreciate all you've done for me.
Thank you. Eli, what is the one habit that you have developed in your career that you feel has benefited you the most?
I started journaling a lot, and I'm able to go back and kind of see where I was like this day, like a year ago or 5 years ago, and it feels great to be like, oh, I've accomplished the thing, or I figured out this problem I was dealing with, or I'm in the same boat that I was like 6 years ago, or like I'm still struggling with the same thing, and it's like, okay, there's obviously something here I need to like get to the bottom of or fix, because it's more than just whatever outside things I was blaming me not getting stuff done on. It was so I was the problem. So that's it's been really eye-opening the last few years, and especially creatively, because I'll stumble onto some phrase for writing. I'm like, ooh, that's good. I don't know if I stole it from something then and forgot, but yeah, it's been really helpful for me a lot.
Well, I will say I'm a big proponent of The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. I do my morning pages every morning. It's part of my daily routine. I want to thank you all for being here. Anytime any of you, and Jeffrey knows this, if you have anything to promote, reach out to me. I'd love to have you come on the show anytime. I want to say to everyone who's watching, thank you for showing up. We don't take it lightly. I can speak for everyone on this panel. In this business, when you show up, we appreciate it. So you can help all of us out by either hitting the like button, leaving a comment, or sharing. Because what that does in social media, not just with this show, with all posts that you see on social media, it helps with the algorithms. So it's very important that you do those things. I'm going to leave you a joke, and then I'm going to leave my closing remark, and then I'm going to turn it over to one of you. And as each person finishes, you turn it over to the next person. And when the last person says goodbye, I will end the show. So you don't have to worry about how to end it. But last night, as I mentioned, I went to see Once Upon a Mattress. And I was sitting next to an old friend of mine, and there was an empty seat between the two of us. And I mentioned that my show is February 11th. It's the day, it's my 63rd birthday, but it's also the Super Bowl. And he told me this joke that this guy goes to the Super Bowl and there's an empty seat next to him. And the guy comes there and he sits next to the empty seat and he says, "Why is there an empty seat?" He said, "This was for my wife, but she passed away a few days ago." Oh. And he said, "Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. But don't you have a friend that you could have offered this ticket to?" And he says, "Yes, but they're all at the funeral today."
Ouch.
So that's my joke for the night. So anyway, I end all of my shows by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. When you finish, and I'm going to say this to all of you as well, when you finish tonight's show, go to your Facebook friends list, and the third name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know the impact that they've made on your life. And by doing so, you're going to make an impact on their life. I have a dear friend, Sean Moniger, and he always says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. With that, I'm going to leave the screen. I'm going to turn it over to you, Barbara. And when you finish, you'll pick the next person. Thank you all, and wrap up this week with positivity. Good night.
Great.
Barbara, it's yours.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure, and I hope the next time we meet that you'll be able to see me better, and I'll have better lighting. But it's been a real pleasure getting to know the rest of you, and I look forward to more opportunities for that. Whether it's on stage or in the cabaret or whatever, on film. Whatever it is that you do best that I have the chance to see. So I'm going to sign off and say goodbye to Steve.
Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, Richard, for having me on. This is my first time. And you are such a light. You are such an encouragement to people, who are a life in the arts. Creativity is challenging. We're trying to make livings. We're trying to find something within ourselves that rings true, that we think is worthy of putting out there for other people to consume or experience. And we can do, like you said, we need to really support each other and encourage each other. And I'm going to try to do that. And I'm going to hand it over to Eli.
Thank you, Steve. Again, Richard, thanks for having me on. And this has been amazing listening to everyone talk. Like, I could listen to you guys talk for hours. And it's just been really inspiring. As you know, as artists, we have so many peaks and valleys. And so just being in this virtual room is inspiring, and it's definitely sending me up to a peak. So thank you guys so much for that. So I'll pass it on to you, Mary.
Thank you, Eli. It's been a pleasure. Just a real varied group of just very intelligent and highly creative people. And yes, I could sit and, we could be at a party and end up talking for hours is how it feels. So I thank Richard for assembling such a lovely circle of people. And it's been a really informative hour. And I will leave it to Jeffrey to close out the evening.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, you guys. Ditto, 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 ditto. Richard, you are indeed a light. This is my third time on the show with you, and I'm so honored that you have taken the interest in my work and in elevating what I do. So thank you. And yeah, I just want to say you all are fantastic artists. I really hope to get to know your work better, and come see Tomorrow We Love in June. I'm so shameless. June 13th through the 23rd. We promise a good time. And to what Steve's saying, that's the joy of being an artist, is being able to elevate and entertain and make people feel good. That's really what I aspire to. So thank you, Richard. Aloha, as we say in the islands. Thanks, everyone.